Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of season one of At Pace, your people and culture talk show. This is, of course, a fantastic day. I think it's getting really, really hot in different parts of the world. Arnold and me are joining you from the west coast of India. Amy is in the UK, and Laura is in Brussels, in Belgium. So I think the heat wave is hitting us all. Of course, we back in India are enjoying the monsoons, and it's a little bit more pleasant out here. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about tattooed employees, cursing at the workplace. We're going to try and not drop too many F bombs today. And of course, talking politics as well. And we got some fantastic people joining us today. Of course, Arnold is a cabin crew at International Airlines. He's a YouTuber and also a tech geek. Um, Welcome, Arnold. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We also have Amy who's joining us, as I said, from the UK. She's a transformational culture coordinator at the TCM Group and my colleague. She's a certified coach, a mindfulness practitioner, an avid reader, and a lifelong learner. And I, of course, endorse her on LinkedIn. She's someone who really brings out the positive vibe every morning. So if you're having a bad Monday morning, make sure you're following Amy, and she'll put you back in your mood. And Laura, she's getting used to her new tag right now as a PhD, but Laura was the former executive director of the International Mediation Institute. She, of course, is a trained mediator and she provides consulting on political and marketing issues. She's, of course, she's a coach. As I said, a certified mediator, and she also provides service on diversity and inclusion. She, of course, has a fantastic podcast that has just begun streaming called Conflict Tipping. And I once again request all of those who are watching us today live to go and check that out. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about tattooed employees. I can see Amy is putting that out right there for us to start with her. But I want to move. I want to actually start with someone who's more closer to the headline that inspired this theme, and that's Arnold. So, the headline that inspired this theme was Virgin Atlantic, you know, uh, relaxing the ban on tattoos for employees. Basically,
Right.
that now employees could show off the tattoos that they had. They didn't have to hide them anymore. I also recently learned that they were not the first ones. There were a lot of airlines before that came up with something like that. I think Air New Zealand actually began that in 2019. So there has been that, of course, that momentum that has caught up to Virgin Atlantic. Arnold, what does this mean to the workplace in general, and what does this mean to you, of course, as a cabin crew?
I think with me specifically as the cabin crew job, the cabin crew profile, the job has changed massively in the last 2 decades. Excuse me. Starting off with, I mean, to come to ready to expose your tattoos, there was a time where 20 years ago, you had to have a 6x6 vision to be cabin crew. You couldn't have glasses. Now that relaxed a few years ago. Then you were not allowed to sport facial hair at one point. That relaxed through the years. Now you have crew who are allowed to even wear man buns and now tattoos. So I think the job has evolved. There is a lot that is expected of you when you're wearing that uniform, because you are kind of wearing many hats once you're in that metal tube 40,000 feet up in the air. Because if the need arises, you have to be a firefighter, you have to be a medical personnel, and yet you need to know whether you're doing the right number of sugars in your teas and coffees. So it's it's quite a versatile job. And I think having relaxed a few norms, like letting crew have tattoos that are exposed, of course, with a few things in mind. It shouldn't be something that's too derogatory or things like that. But I think it's the way forward. When I spoke about man buns already, the airline that I work for has a very practical approach to things like this. For example, one of the reasons why we didn't allow crew to have long hair is just because in case of an emergency, when you're wearing a smoke hood, it needs to have a skin contact so that there's no leakage in terms of you inhaling smoke in a fire emergency. So if there is a practical advantage to that makes your job a little more easier, or that helps you do your job in a better way, then it makes sense. But I think you having a tattoo or not, doesn't make much of a difference. And I think many airlines are now recognizing that and easing that out. So yeah.
Anil, just a quick question before I move forward. Do you have a tattoo, or are you planning
I
to get one?
do. I do have 4 tattoos, but they're all very discreetly hidden
Yeah,
in my uniform.
because your particular airline, and I know we're not taking names today, because of course
Yeah,
you don't represent them with your thoughts and ideas. Isn't
yeah.
like come out openly on that. Laura, I want to get you into this. What are your thoughts about initial thoughts about, of course, this from just inclusivity perspective?
Because I think that's the right way to go with it, is inclusivity. But first, I want to know, because I can see Amy has tattoos, I have tattoos, Arnold has tattoos. Jonah, do you also have tattoos? Or are you the only tattoo-less person here?
I knew I knew I would get question on this, but I am hoping to get inked soon. Yes, I've been wanting to do it for the last 5 years, but it hasn't happened. But I hope this episode inspires me to go forward.
It will.
Okay. It's almost like you're just checking there's no real barriers for you in the workplace if you go out and get tattoos. So this is really helping you in your ongoing art project, is what I'm hearing. Fantastic. So look, no, I think getting back to inclusivity, I think that's a really good point. And when you mentioned that Air New Zealand was the first airline to permit tattoos, I wasn't totally surprised, because of course you've got the Maori people in New Zealand where tattooing is so important as a cultural signifier. So, of course, you can't say, well, we won't hire Maoris. That's totally inappropriate. And I can only assume that there are other countries and other cultures where similar things apply. I mean, speaking for myself, because this is something I have been thinking about this past week. I mean, of course, as I've said, I have tattoos. Of course, I wouldn't have problems with someone else having tattoos in the workplace. Because at the end of the day, it is about self-expression and identity, and these are things you don't leave at home. And I think the only argument you can really make against tattoos is, as Arnold highlighted, this idea that they're exclusionary and insulting, and problematic from that point of view. But also, at the end of the day, I mean, our employers don't own our bodies, and it would be a serious problem to say that they did. And so, of course, they can't govern what we do with them.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And of course, following up on my inspiration to get a tattoo, I keep using this hashtag called mission mediation. Probably I should get that somewhere on top of my forehead. So every time I walk into a room, people know what I'm getting in there. But Amy, is there a right way to flaunt your tattoo, or not a right way to flaunt it? Where do you draw the line on? You've been before you were at the TCM, of course. You have had so many positions. Because I was reading a couple of reports in a nice recently published article by the BBC, where some of the employees said, some of the people who did sport tattoos said that it kind of got in the way of them getting jobs in the corporate sector. Have you faced that kind of a situation, and how has been your approach to this so far?
So, first of all, really interesting language that you use then when you talk about flaunting my tattoos. So today I'm wearing a t-shirt because it's 19 degrees in my flat. And it doesn't feel like it's a conscious decision to flaunt my tattoos. I'm just dressing appropriately for the weather.
Right.
My background is quite corporate, actually. Yeah. So I spent 10 years in pharmaceutical sales, which is traditionally, quite a traditional corporate suited and booted kind of role. I had my first tattoos whilst in that position, but they were small and in more discreet places on my body. I don't know whether it would have prevented me from getting my tattoos, because once I decided to have my tattoos, I was quite late in my life, so I was very comfortable with who I was and very comfortable in my own skin, and I don't think a job would have actually, or the risk of upsetting a manager who, as Laura quite rightly says, doesn't own my body, would have dissuaded me in any way. I've had comments from people who don't like tattoos, I worked for a lady who really didn't like tattoos, and she would sometimes comment on them, and I would always try to not to antagonize her, because I respected her, her views as well. So she's just not keen on body art, and so if we were going to entertain clients, if we were taking them out for dinner, or if we had a big client meeting, I would have absolutely worn a long sleeve dress or a jacket, because, I'm an adult and I can judge a situation and I can do what I think is the right thing to make everybody in the room feel comfortable. But no, I think if anything, it was really nice actually to read what the chief people officer from Virgin said when she was talking about the reasons behind their policy, and it was more to do with a bigger piece around feeling like you belong somewhere, feeling like you're included, and she used the word championing individuality, and I thought that was really, really nice, because we need lots and lots of different types of people to make a workplace really great. If we're all the same and if we all have the same views and opinions, then everything becomes really narrow and we can't exploit our brilliance. We need lots and lots of different people. We need creative people, and we need quiet people, and we need confident people, and we need deep thinkers and extroverts and introverts. We need a good mix, and anything that encourages that mix, I think, is really, really positive.
Yeah, and kind of steering this towards the whole topic of transformational culture, which once again is something that's very close to your heart, Amy. Building that kind of inclusive culture in the workplace. We did a recent poll on LinkedIn to ask what does a tattoo basically represent, and I know those were some very basic pointers we put there, but there were a lot of people who wrote back in the comment section and explained that. And you made a very interesting point, Amy. The tattoos tells more about ourselves, people viewing them, than the ones actually wearing them. I'm wondering whether that is something that you want to kind of just go deeper into today.
Yeah, I think because I think how I react to anybody is not, it's not about them. Okay, it's never about them. It's always about what's going on for me. So if as human beings, we are constantly judging. We're constantly making judgments because it's ingrained in us to constantly look for threat. Okay, so when I meet somebody, I'm constantly judging them. I'm constantly looking for what threat do they pose to me. So if somebody meets me and assumes that because I have tattoos that I am, gregarious and aggressive or common or whatever, then that's their stuff.
And you're also expected to be. You also kind of. Also this turning this towards Arnold. In a job like the one that you hold right now, it's where the eyes are on you all the time. You're kind of looked upon as the person that's going to bring in that balance to, say, a crisis situation, or a cheerfulness to, say, a very dull situation. And so there's all eyes on you. In many ways, you are a kind of a role model there. And so does it put, I would say, extra pressure on, say, your employer to kind of be also, I would say, careful about what kind of tattoos you are wearing and what kind of tattoos you're not wearing?
Yeah, see, that's I think where that's a little fine line. But as Amy and Laura pointed out, your employer does not really own your body, and you are not signing off yourself to the company. You're doing a service for a particular for remuneration, and that's it. That's where you draw the line. You once I leave work and I'm at home, I'm not constantly thinking about work. No matter the new work culture is that you kind of exhausting yourself to the limits is the new norm, but that shouldn't be the case. And when it comes to tattooing, especially in my job, there used to be a certain kind of expectation from you that you need to put yourself at least you need to put yourself forward in a particular way. But I don't think that's the case anymore. As I said, the job has been evolving and it will continue to evolve from here forward. It's not that since we've reached this stage where tattooing has become normal in a lot of cabin crew, and it's not the finish line yet. I think the job will evolve 20 years from now, and we will see many different things that if you would think at this point would not be possible. If you think about it 20 years ago, whether cabin crew would be allowed to flaunt their tattoos, you would think it's a very outlandish idea. Yet here we are. So just imagine what an outlandish idea. Think of the most outlandish idea you can think right now from 20 years ago, and that could very much be possible.
Well, yeah, we're seeing sneakers come back into fashion on airplanes. There's a new
and I
airline.
think yeah, and I think that's a very practical change because my wife and me, we always have this discussion, and this may sound as a very male chauvinist thing to say, but she really loves heels. And I tell her that, heels are, I think, probably the worst thing that have happened to you. She disagrees because she really loves the whole way that it looks. But I said it seems so unnatural. And I think women have it much more difficult than men, especially in my job, because they for a small example, before the doors are shut, women wear heels, and once the doors are shut, they change into flats, because just in case of an emergency presents itself, if we have to deploy slides, then there's no time wasted in changing into heels. However, uh, I think wearing something that you're comfortable in, that's like sneakers, that will probably help you do the job that's expected of you in a more efficient way. I think that's just the way forward. If that's how it is, you'll probably be more productive and more efficient in something that's expected of you. So,
Laura, to just gather your final thoughts on this. Thanks, Arnold. Just to gather your final thoughts on this, with regards to, I guess, so a lot of changes taking place. That we always have heard of dress codes in the workplace, but now these changes taking place are not just, these, I would say, isolated incidents, but this is part of a much larger post-pandemic awareness and mindfulness of, these different aspects to, a healthy and harmonious workplace. And because I think I want the show to be also a place where people find solutions to problems. So, what would you advise people at the workplace who are struggling to address this? They are struggling to address situations where they feel they are being bullied, or I would say overpowered by these kind of very stringent restrictions. Of course, the simple solution to that is leave the job. But beyond that, if you're going with that, but yeah.
Okay.
How do you suggest they could address this?
All right. I wonder where you were going with that. I was ready for like 5 different questions. I'm like, where's it going to end up? Okay. And all right, solving workplace bullying. Sweet. Let's go. I think that you did raise that interesting point about in the post-pandemic, or at least post the worst part of the pandemic, hopefully, phase, there is a bit more awareness that, you know what, we can still function as professionals if we're wearing a shirt on top and pajamas on the bottom and so on. And we can still do it as professionals if we have a flexible working life and if we bring our true selves to work. I think we all saw people with bad hair days. I know that everyone saw my old kitchen in various states of misery throughout a webinar series last year. So I think there is perhaps that increased consciousness of a humanity. And of course, we're all aware of the difficulty people are having in retaining staff in the wake of this so-called Great Resignation. I would like to see the data on that, but we'll see. And so I think there is perhaps a cultural shift in terms of the more authentic, but this is something I think has actually been going on for a while. We've heard about the value of bringing your authentic self to work for at least the last decade. And when it comes to tattoos as well, specifically, I think that the culture around tattoo is shifting. And I'm saying that in very broad terms because, of course, it differs from country to country and from place to place. So that's why I was really interested to sort of hear about this poll you ran about tattoos the other day and people commenting, because I remember when I read those questions, I was really shocked because I was like, I would never have any of these thoughts in my head because, of course, our approach to tattoos are cultural. So I think I've cleanly dodged the way to answering how to fix workplace bullying, but hopefully opened a broader conversation.
But I think the theme can run through our the next topic of sorts, and that is cursing in the workplace that we wanted to talk about. And we saw LinkedIn, of course, had another poll recently about cursing in the workplace and whether it's all right. And of course, today's general theme is about what is acceptable and what's not at a workplace, right? And I know that I myself have been in situations where I've had bosses curse at a workplace. I have cursed at a workplace. And of course, you adjust to the different workplaces you move to. There are certain workplaces where it's more common, certain places where it's not. But yeah, initial thoughts on cursing at the workplace, and then we can start breaking it down more. Amy?
So I don't think I get through a day without swearing. I'm quite a sweary person.
And 1 second, and yet we have had a lot of calls as colleagues, and we haven't yet exchanged curse words, not at each other, but even in general. So yeah, that's an interesting point.
I feel like I've left you. I feel like I let you down. I think the thing here is, let's treat people like adults, right? Let's assume that we're all capable of reading rooms, reading situations, and acting and behaving like adults. So I know where and when and in front of whom I can swear. Right. And I know that when I'm around my mother, she really doesn't like swearing. She doesn't like it. So I try really hard not to. But when I'm around my friends and I'm excited about something, or I'm angry about something, or when I'm just at home on my own in my flat and I stub my toe and it really, really hurts, nearly, then I'm going to allow myself to be creative and with my language. I think if you start applying rules and regulations and policies around what you can and can't say, I might have a conversation with our CEO, and I will not swear during it. And then I'll have a chat with one of my colleagues about what we did at the weekend, and we might both swear all the way through that chat, and no harm has been done to anybody in that interaction. So I think this is just about, letting people be adults and letting people make good decisions based on who's in front of them. That's literally, that's what it is.
I think we're all on the same page about finding the appropriate environment. And I think once you're comfortable with that environment, then you know exactly whether you should be using that language or not. And I think, in other words, you're also telling yourself, can I really be my true self here or not? Right? Depending on the environment, the people you're working with.
Yeah, and there's something really positive in that. For some, from somebody who's worked in sales, where trust is a huge element of creating a good relationship with a client. Actually, when I worked in sales, with the clients that trusted me, and in order to build trust with my clients, I would occasionally swear, because that communicated to them how much I cared about something, or how excited I was for them about something, or how angry I was for them that something had gone wrong. Sometimes it can be a really, really valuable tool. I think swearing at people is absolutely, that's different. If you're directing your bad language towards somebody in order to cause harm, then that's a different story altogether. But if you're using it in terms of trying to get across how you're feeling, then I think potentially it can be a really, really good thing. It can be really good for your teammates to know how much you care about something, or how much how much you want to celebrate something in them. I think there's potentially some really good things that can come out of swearing in the right context.
Laura, Arnold, I'm wondering whether any of you would like to disagree with Amy at this point.
Thank you. So I totally agree with Amy. I think for me the line in the sand is that you don't swear at people. Otherwise swearing is a normal part of language. I would also add that I wouldn't yell at people. in the workplace, and hopefully otherwise, unless I'm screaming, "Oh, watch out for the giant snake!" I mean, and that's really that's really it. So, I mean, we all go to work, or like in different types of contexts, right? And we don't want to exclude or upset other people there, or make the environment toxic. So that for me is the line.
Arnold?
Shut the front door. Crew never Crew never swear. Amy got a bit of a heart attack there. She thought I was going for it. No, I believe that I think if someone, at least my colleagues, whenever there's someone swearing, not at me, of course, but in context, I think that automatically does develop a level of a trust or a level of comfort. You also kind of know that the person is kind of getting their more authentic self to you rather than a self that's kind of guarded. So I think that's more of a compliment sometimes, and that's a better way to read it. Having said that, again, in my job, I can't probably ask a passenger if he wanted a dot 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 cup of coffee. Maybe 20 years down the line, that would probably be normal, but let's keep that conversation for another day. Let's go from tattoos to swearing. That probably take 2 decades in my line of work.
We should have tried keeping that on, Arnold, and checked if YouTube beeped us. But there's a recent survey in 2021 that said that swearing in the workplace had increased by 60%, and then the report goes on to say it's a good thing. But there are also other reports and studies that talk about how, as you say, we have to find the right balance, and find the right atmosphere and find the right company, that's used to this. But then you also have workplaces now that are becoming so diverse, especially and also very global. So you have people from different cultures of the workplace. People are not used to swearing. People who are not even used to talking back to, say, elders or seniors. And when they see this happening quite a lot, it could affect them mentally, emotionally. So from a leadership management perspective, how would you tackle something like this, and where do you encourage, of course, individuality, and the fact that you can just be yourself and have that freedom to be yourself and celebrate yourself at the same time, kind of keep that space where it doesn't become too toxic for someone who's not used to it.
I think Amy really said it right, that we really need to let people be adults, and I think that says a lot, because as an adult, you know how to read a room, you know what to say when. It takes you a few seconds, even when you're meeting someone new, to kind of vibe and know what the opposite person is comfortable with or isn't. And I think that just goes a long way, and that is part of adulting, and kind of knowing what the situation is, and taking it from then on.
Actually, if I can respond a little. If I can respond a
go
little
ahead.
bit to what Arnold just said, actually, because I think I disagree a little tiny bit. Because I mean, as I understand it, you want to talk about leadership and intercultural conditions specifically, right, Jonah? And where you've got these different constraints in terms of what people feel comfortable saying and how they feel comfortable expressing themselves. And so I would really add that, I mean, Amy really highlighted we need to think about the context we're in when we start swearing. And I would say that in this intercultural space where we're creating teams or groups or what have you, we need to start by making that place feel safe first and psychologically safe first. So that, if someone does slip up, if I'm there and I swear and I'm like, oh, sorry, guys, I'm Australian, sorry, we swear all the time, people aren't immediately isolated by that, right? Okay, because we already have a foundation. And so I think for that intercultural leadership perspective, we start with psychological safety first, and then we start getting maybe more comfortable or sort of setting boundaries within the group. That'd be my take.
Amy, you and me actually did our induction together and got initiated into our new workplace together at the TCM, and we had this amazing induction period where we got to know our colleagues. I think so. What I'm also trying to drive a point here through is from a workplace culture scenario, building rapport is is quite, I would say, uh, important before you start being yourself. So you know exactly who you're working with and your colleagues and the environment and the culture. And so how important is, I think, once again, from a management perspective, to kind of induct people into, say, a new workplace, and kind of give them an idea of what their normal workplace cultures would look like.
I think Laura made a really good point in terms of psychological safety. I think that's really important, and all of our leaders have a responsibility to try and create that. And one of the ways that you do that is by asking people how they are. Asking people how they're feeling, and what they need. I think that's really, really important. I think yeah, when you're bringing somebody new into a culture, and you want them to fit in, but you also want everybody else to feel like it's okay for them to carry on being the way that they're being. It's really difficult. But I think that's where good leaders listen. I think and ask lots and lots of questions. How are you feeling? What do you need? All of that kind of stuff feels really important in terms of starting to build that psychological safety. And, we were really lucky when we had our induction, JR. We spent loads of time with our colleagues on a one-to-one basis. We have lovely long Teams calls where we barely talked about, I don't know about you, but we barely talked about work. We talked about ourselves, who we were, what we liked, what we'd done in our lives, what our hopes and dreams were, all that kind of stuff. And that's when you really get to know people and you start to feel like you're part of something. Yeah.
Brilliant. So we're kind of nearing the end of our show today, but I want to wrap this up with one final thought. And I think because I just want to switch this into this whole idea of workplace culture and building a healthy, harmonious, happy workplace environment. So quick question to the three of you is, how important is it for the employees to be quite involved in the policies of, the policies of a workplace with regards to the do's and don'ts, what's acceptable, what's not, just the normal expectations and behavioral expectations of everyone else in the workplace. How important is it for employees to be also part of that dialogue and that discussion to build that policy? And is it even practical to actually get everyone's opinion on this before something like that is put together? Laura? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Amy.
No, go, Laura, you go.
Guys, so much misdirection. Sure. So as I understand, Jonah, you're asking about, how important essentially are the employees to co-creating a workplace culture, right? And I think it's a really good question. I think that I suspect Amy will be in a similar vein because we're both talking about transformational culture, that of course they're essential to the ongoing creation and co-creation and sort of seeing what works to have authentic selves and have this happy, positive, psychologically safe workplace. Sorry if I preempted you there a little bit, Amy, forgive me. And I would say that, modern workplaces where they expect that the workplace culture will be set just by a CEO or just by a founder are going to have some rifts as it comes up because expectations of founders will not perhaps meet the expectations of employees. So there always needs to be the employees in the co-creation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, the question who owns culture, everybody and nobody, we all contribute to the culture in our workplace, and leaders absolutely have responsibility in terms of the air that they breathe, how they act and interact and respond. But we all own culture, and if you engage with your employees and listen to them and ask them questions, and uncover their needs and find out what they want and how they want to feel within their workplace, then that's a really, really good start.
Yeah, I think being part of being involved for employees in any form of policies is basically just it's a part of a community of sorts, because your workplace is a community, and you being involved in what's right and what's wrong, I think is an obvious answer, that you need to be involved, because at the end of it, you're making a community for yourself, for your employees. If not anything more than that, it would at least open up a discussion with many people involved, rather than just one person or the CEO taking a decision for the entire workforce. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you for those parting thoughts. I'm going to steal Amy's point there about we all own the culture. And I think that's a brilliant sentence to take back. So yeah, flaunt those tattoos. Talk about wearing sneakers at work on Mondays. Feel free to be yourself, of course, judging by the environment and the company around you, and express yourself wholeheartedly, because they say that cursing is the best way of expressing yourselves. So that's where we draw the line back here on this show, and of course on this episode precisely. But more importantly, if you feel there's something at your workplace culture that needs to be discussed, that needs to be dialogue, you should be the one beginning and addressing that dialogue. And there is help there. There are experts there who can help you take you to that space. Thank you so much, Amy, Arnold, Laura. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thanks.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. See ya.